Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the silent suffocation of the command center. We're going to explore what might just be the most absolutely crucial medical investigation you come across this year, especially if you're over the age of 45. What we're looking at is a silent, progressive clinical crisis happening inside millions of aging bodies right this very second. And honestly, it's completely misunderstood. We're going to unpack a physiological mechanism that fundamentally changes how we view physical decline. Now, this isn't your standard run-of-the-mill wellness advice. We're doing a deep dive into high-stakes clinical anatomy to uncover exactly why the body's ultimate command center might be quietly suffocating. And, more importantly, how we can systematically put a stop to it. So ask yourself honestly for a second. Do you ever find yourself just kind of drifting sideways when you're walking across a perfectly flat parking lot? Not on an icy sidewalk, not on uneven gravel, but on a perfectly 100% level surface. When you stand up, do you subtly reach out for the wall to steady yourself? Does your body slightly hesitate before deciding which direction it's actually going? When patients bring these exact symptoms to a doctor, they almost universally hear the exact same dismissal. Well, watch your step, take it slow, it's just age. They go home, quietly accepting that this instability is just what getting older feels like. But in this explainer, we're going to show you why accepting that narrative is a really dangerous mistake.
Now look at these seemingly disconnected warning signs. In clinical practice, patients complaining of drifting or balance issues almost always have these other symptoms hiding right in plain sight. You walk into the kitchen and the whole reason you went in there is just completely gone. Not fuzzy, just gone. Or maybe you hit this crushing wave of mental fatigue right around 2 p.m. every single day. You know that wall where your concentration just totally fragments, even if you slept perfectly the night before? Or perhaps you just feel this persistent brain fog, like you're trying to read a book through a foggy windshield. These are not random isolated signs of stress or aging. As you'll see, they are early warning signals of a unified, deeply concerning crisis in your cerebral blood flow.
To really grasp this, we have to understand where the breakdown actually happens. When someone starts stumbling or drifting, their very first instinct is to assume their legs are the problem, right? So they do squats, they take calcium supplements, or they stretch their hip flexors. But they are treating the entirely wrong system. Your legs are just the hardware. Sure, they're extraordinary mechanical structures, but they are completely blind. They literally don't know what to do without instructions. The true culprit here is the command center, specifically a structure at the base of your skull called the cerebellum. It's responsible for millisecond precision timing and spatial coordination. Treating the hardware when the command center is the thing that's failing is exactly why so many interventions simply never work. Think about walking for a second. We tend to think of it as this stable, smooth activity. It is absolutely not. Walking, at its most fundamental biomechanical level, is quite literally a controlled fall. That is a terrifying but completely accurate reality. Every single time you take a step, you shift your center of mass ahead of your base of support. For a fraction of a second, you are in free fall, tipping forward with nothing underneath you. Your cerebellum is constantly processing massive data streams from your joints, your inner ear, your eyes, all to issue these microcorrections and precisely time the swing of your other leg to catch you. If that millisecond timing degrades even slightly, you drift. If it degrades further, you fall. To put into perspective why this timing degrades, let's look at a single crucial metric, the number 20. Your brain accounts for roughly 2% of your total body weight, but it consumes a staggering 20% of your total oxygen supply. It is the most metabolically expensive organ in your entire body, and it is ruthlessly, almost violently, sensitive to any reduction in that oxygen. You really don't need a major blockage for things to go wrong here. A modest, chronic reduction in blood flow, sustained quietly over months or years, is more than enough to drastically degrade the cerebellum's ability to keep you upright. It is essentially a slow starvation. Let me share a quick clinical case from the source material that really brings this to life. Meet Robert. He's a 64-year-old civil engineer. He started drifting to the left when he walked. He was losing common nouns in conversation, and he was hitting that crushing 2 p.m. fatigue wall hard. His doctors told him these were all just separate issues accumulating with age, but they weren't. His cerebellum was actually being starved of oxygen. Once the mechanical restrictions in his neck were clinically released over a 10-week protocol, his drift totally vanished. His afternoon fatigue wall pushed back to 5 p.m., and he described the restoration of his brain's blood flow with this exact amazing observation. It felt like someone had gradually been turning up the resolution on a television he had gotten used to watching slightly blurry. So why was Robert's brain starving in the first place? Well, the answer lies in the vertebral basilar circulation.
Now, unlike almost any other major artery in your body, the vertebral arteries that feed your balance center do not just run alongside your spine. They actually run through it. They are literally threaded through small bony openings in your cervical vertebrae, ascending like a wire running through a series of rigid rings to feed the cerebellum and posterior brain. This makes it the absolute most structurally vulnerable major circulation in the human body. It is completely unprotected by soft tissue. Because of this incredibly unique anatomy, we develop these silent anatomical choke points. Think about it. If your vertebrae are even slightly misaligned, or if the surrounding muscles are in chronic spasm from decades of desk work, forward head posture, or maybe an old whiplash injury, those arteries get compressed. They get kinked. The main danger zones are the base of the neck, which often results in that rounded dowager's hump, which, by the way, is actually a chronic mechanical blockage, and the upper cervical spine, right at the base of the skull. This compression slowly reduces the internal diameter of the blood vessel. It quietly starves the cerebellum day after day, year after year, triggering that memory loss, the fatigue, and yes, the drifting.
Okay, so now that we've identified the true source of this crisis, what do we do about it? Well, we can't just blindly stretch our necks and hope for the best. In fact, standard neck stretches often target the middle of the spine, which is already overly mobile, and that can actually make things worse. What's urgently required here is a highly specific two-part clinical protocol. We must first mechanically release the arterial compression, and then we have to actively rewire the neurological pathways. Let's walk right through block 1, which is all about mechanically prying open those bony channels. Step 1 targets the base of the neck. You drop your chin, find the C7 vertebra, that's the bony bump at the base of your neck, press gently against its side, and slowly rotate your head toward that pressure until you feel a taut elastic resistance. You hold that for just 2 to 3 seconds to stretch the joint capsule, and then repeat on both sides. Step 2 is for releasing the muscular pressure from the sternocleidomastoid. You anchor your hand on your collarbone, tilt your head to the opposite shoulder, lift your chin, and hold that deep stretch for 20 to 30 seconds. Finally, step 3. This involves 2 minutes of firm, deliberate, circular fingertip massage down both sides of the cervical spine. This systematically breaks down the physical restrictions that are literally choking the arteries. Once that blood flow is mechanically unblocked, we have to address the brain itself. And this brings us to a truly beautiful concept: neuroplasticity. See, the medical establishment often lets aging adults believe that whatever is lost to age or disuse is simply gone forever. That is a total myth. The cerebellum is a highly trainable system. Through neuroplasticity, your brain has the continuous ability to strengthen neural pathways, but, and this is key, only if they are consistently activated and challenged right at the boundary of their current capacity. We literally have to force the cerebellum to rewire itself. Which brings us to block 2, our daily cerebellum training protocol. Step 1 forces your brain to manage conflicting timing sequences. You rotate your hips in a circle, allow one leg to step out following that rotation, and simultaneously tap your hands in a completely separate, independent rhythm. I'm telling you, it's going to feel impossible and super awkward at first. But that awkwardness, that is exactly where neuroplasticity happens. It's your cerebellum actively expanding its wiring. Step 2 is the fixed point turn, which is actually borrowed from classical dance. You lock your eyes on a visual target on the wall, walk a complete 360-degree circle, keeping your eyes locked on that target for as long as physically possible before snapping back to it. This forces the cerebellum to stabilize conflicting sensory inputs from your eyes and your inner ear, directly fighting off dizziness and spatial decline in real time. We've covered some incredibly intense and vital ground in this explainer today. So I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Are your legs truly failing you? Or is your command center slowly suffocating? Because those symptoms you've been told to just accept, the drifting sideways, the fogginess, the exhaustion, they are not some inevitable part of getting older. They are a mechanical restriction of blood flow to your brain's balance center. But as we've uncovered in our investigation today, if you apply targeted, consistent, daily intervention, you can mechanically release that restriction and neurologically rebuild your balance. You have the power to absolutely refuse the inevitability of physical decline. The real question is, will you take the steps to clear those choke points, or will you just let the command center starve? Think about that for a bit, and I really hope this helps you take back control of your body.